I stood in my kitchen at 6:30 in the morning, phone in hand, staring at my bank app showing a balance of $3.17. Yesterday, it held $42,000. My life savings. Gone. I knew exactly who took it. My mother had joint account access from when I was in college. The doorbell rang, then pounding. A deep voice shouted from outside, "Police, open up." My hands went numb. What had my mother done now? 3 days earlier, everything had been normal. Well, as normal as things ever got in my family. I was at my desk at work, analyzing quarterly reports for clients, when my phone buzzed. Brittany, my younger sister. I almost didn't answer. The last 5 times she'd called, she'd wanted money, but something made me pick up. Her voice came through shaking, broken by sobs. "I need your help, Almeda. Please. I'm in serious trouble this time." I closed my office door and sat down. "What kind of trouble, Brittany?" The story poured out in gasps. Gambling debts, $45,000, loan sharks, real ones, not like in movies. They'd given her 2 weeks to pay or they'd hurt her. She'd already missed the first deadline. They'd sent photos of her apartment building, her car. They knew where she worked. My stomach dropped, but something felt off. This wasn't the first desperate call. Over the past 5 years, I'd lent her nearly $20,000. A car repair that turned out to be a shopping spree. Rent she claimed she couldn't pay, but then I saw her vacation photos. An emergency root canal that never happened. "Brittany," I said slowly, "have you talked to the police?" "I can't. They'll kill me if I go to the cops." That's what they said. "Then we need to get you help. Gamblers Anonymous. A therapist. I can help you find resources." "I don't need a therapist." Her voice turned sharp. "I need money. You have money. I know you've been saving for a house. This is life or death, Almeda. Family helps family." Those words, family helps family, I'd heard them my whole life, usually right before someone asked me for something. I took a breath. "Brittany, I love you, but I can't keep enabling this. I've given you money before and you never paid it back. You never got help. If I give you this money, what's to stop this from happening again?" The crying stopped. Her voice went cold. "So you're just going to let them hurt me? You're going to sit on your pile of money while your sister gets beaten? What kind of person are you?" "I'm the person who's worked 12 years to save that money. I started as an intern making $22,000 a year. I worked 2 jobs through my 20s while you partied. I lived in a tiny studio apartment with furniture from Goodwill. Every dollar in that account represents sacrifice." Silence on the other end. Then she hung up. I sat staring at my phone, guilt already creeping in. What if she was telling the truth this time? What if something really happened to her? 2 hours later, my mother called. Linda didn't waste time with pleasantries. "Your sister called me crying. She told me what you said. How dare you turn your back on family?" "Mom, this isn't about turning my back. She needs help, not money. Don't you lecture me about what she needs." My voice has risen now, sharp enough that my coworkers outside my office probably heard. "I raised you better than this. After everything I've done for you, sacrificed for you, and this is how you repay me? Your sister is in danger, and you care more about buying some house than her safety. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Almeda. But family is supposed to be there for each other. You have money sitting in a bank doing nothing. Brittany needs it now. When you were struggling in college, who helped you? When you needed a car to get to your first job, who co-signed the loan?" The guilt pressed heavier. She was right about those things. But something in her tone bothered me. The same manipulation I'd felt my whole life. The same way she'd pit Brittany and me against each other since we were kids. "I'm not giving her the money, Mom. I'm sorry." Her voice dropped to something I'd never heard before. Ice cold, quiet. "You'll regret this decision, Almeda." She hung up. I tried to focus on work but couldn't. Tried to convince myself I'd done the right thing. Boundaries were healthy. I couldn't save Brittany from herself. That night, I barely slept. The next day crawled by. I checked my phone constantly, expecting updates. Nothing. The second day was the same. By the third day, I started to relax. Maybe Brittany had found another way. Maybe she'd finally get real help. I went to bed that third night and checked my bank account one last time before turning off the light. $42,312. Still there. I set my phone on the nightstand and closed my eyes. The next morning, everything changed. I woke at 6 and reached for my phone out of habit. Checked my balance while still half asleep. $3.17. My brain couldn't process it. I refreshed the app. Same number. Checked the transaction history. One withdrawal at 11:58 p.m. the night before. $42,295. Authorized user, Linda Sullivan. The joint account. The one we'd opened when I was 19 and starting college. Mom insisted I needed someone who could access funds in an emergency. I'd meant to remove her years ago, but never got around to it. I hadn't thought about it in so long. She'd taken everything. My hands shook as I pulled up her number. It went straight to voicemail. I tried Brittany. The call wouldn't go through. Number blocked. I was pulling on clothes, trying to figure out what to do first, when the pounding started on my front door. Police. Open up. My legs nearly gave out. I stumbled to the door, looked through the peephole. 2 uniformed officers, a man and a woman, standing on my third-floor apartment landing. I opened the door. Yes? The male officer, tall with graying hair, held up some papers. Are you Almeda Sullivan? Yes. We need to inform you that an emergency restraining order has been filed against you by Brittany Sullivan. You are ordered to stay at least 500 feet away from Miss Sullivan at all times. Any violation will result in arrest. Do you understand? What? I shook my head. There must be a mistake. I haven't even seen my sister in weeks. The female officer, younger with a no-nonsense expression, stepped forward. The restraining order was filed yesterday, based on allegations of threatening behavior, text messages, showing up at her residence, verbal threats of physical harm. I never did any of that. I haven't texted her except to refuse to lend her money. I haven't been to her apartment in months. That's something you can address at the hearing. The male officer handed me the papers. You have a court date in 2 weeks. Until then, you must maintain the 500-foot distance. If you see Miss Sullivan in public, you are required to leave the area immediately. They left. I stood in my doorway, papers in hand, mind spinning. This was planned. Brittany filed the restraining order before my mother took the money. Now, if I reported the theft, if I accused my own mother of stealing $42,000, I'd look like the unstable, vindictive sister that the restraining order painted me as. Who would believe me? The woman threatening her sister over money would of course claim her mother stole from her. They'd trapped me. I closed the door and sank onto my couch. My phone showed dozens of notifications. Bills coming due, rent in 5 days. I had $3.17 to my name, and I had no idea how much worse it was about to get. I spent the morning trying to fix this. First call was to my bank's fraud department. I explained the situation to a sympathetic woman named Carol, who listened patiently as I went through everything. I understand how upsetting this must be, she said when I finished. Unfortunately, Linda Sullivan is a listed authorized user on this account with full withdrawal privileges. Legally, she had the right to access these funds, but she stole from me. In the eyes of the bank, it's not theft if she had legal authority. This is a civil matter between family members. You would need to pursue this through the courts. We can't reverse the transaction or freeze the account retroactively. I thanked her and hung up, feeling hollow. Next call was to a lawyer's office. The receptionist quoted me a $5,000 retainer just to start a civil suit. Money I didn't have. I tried calling Linda again. Voicemail. Sent texts. No response. She'd gotten what she wanted and vanished. My rent was $2,000, due in 5 days. I had 3 credit cards, all nearly maxed from a medical emergency last year, when I'd had to have my appendix out, and the insurance company had fought half the claims. I could maybe scrape together $500 on the cards before hitting the limits. I called my best friend Sarah. We'd known each other since high school, and she was the one person I trusted completely. When I explained I had a delayed payment at work and needed to borrow $1,000, she didn't hesitate. "I'll transfer it right now. You can pay me back whenever." The lie tasted bitter. I'd never lied to Sarah before, but I couldn't tell her the truth. Not yet. It was too humiliating. That afternoon, I went to work trying to act normal. I'd been at Westfield Investment Partners for 7 years, working my way up from junior analyst to senior financial analyst. I liked my job, liked my coworkers, liked my boss Harold, who'd mentored me and pushed for my promotions. Around 3 p.m., Harold's assistant stopped by my desk. "He wants to see you. Conference room B." My stomach tightened. Harold never used conference rooms for casual check-ins. I walked down the hall, knocked on the door. "Come in." Harold sat at the table with Janet from HR and Paul, our CFO. None of them smiled. "Almeida, sit down." Harold gestured to a chair. His usual warmth was gone. Saturday. What's going on?" Harold slid a folder across the table. "We received an anonymous email this morning. It contains serious allegations about financial misconduct." I opened the folder. Inside were printouts of what looked like account statements, transaction records, emails, all showing my name, all suggesting I'd been moving money between client accounts in small amounts. The documents claimed I'd embezzled $42,000 over the past 8 months. "This is fake." I looked up at the three of them. "None of this is real. I would never steal from clients." "We have to investigate." Paul's voice was flat. "Standard procedure. Until we complete a full audit of your accounts and these transactions, you're on administrative leave." "Administrative leave?" "Paid leave," Janet clarified. "But you need to surrender your laptop, your access badge, and any files you've taken home. Security will escort you to collect your personal items." "You can't be serious." I looked at Harold. "You know me. 7 years I've worked here. You think I'd steal?" His expression softened slightly. "I don't know what to think, Almeida. But these documents are detailed. They list specific transactions, dates, account numbers. We have to investigate thoroughly." The amount, $42,000, the same amount missing from my account. This wasn't coincidence. Someone set me up. My voice shook. Someone made these documents to frame me. The timing, the amount, it's all connected to something happening in my personal life. "That's something we'll look into," Paul said. "But until we have answers, you can't have access to client accounts or our systems." A security guard I'd smiled at every morning for 7 years waited outside the conference room. He walked me to my desk. Everyone watched as I packed my few personal items into a box. Photos of Sarah and me at the beach, a coffee mug, a small plant. The walk to the elevator felt like miles. The security guard rode down with me, waited while I loaded my box into my car, then took my badge. I sat in the parking lot for 20 minutes before I could drive. Everything was falling apart. No money, no job, a restraining order making me look dangerous. And now accusations of embezzlement. Whoever created those documents knew what they were doing. They had financial knowledge. They'd made them look professional, detailed, believable. And the timing was perfect. If investigators looked into my personal finances and saw $42,000 suddenly disappear, they might think I'd moved embezzled funds somewhere else. But the money was gone, taken by my mother. How could I prove I didn't embezzle it, when I couldn't even prove where it went without sounding like I was making up a story about family theft? That evening, I drove to the police station, waited 40 minutes to talk to an officer at the desk, explained about the stolen money from my account. The officer, a tired-looking man in his 50s, took notes. "So your mother withdrew money from a joint account?" "Yes, $42,000. Without my permission. But she's an authorized user on the account?" "Technically, yes, but..." "Ma'am, this sounds like a civil dispute. Family matter. You need to handle this in civil court, not criminal court. She stole from me. Did she threaten you? Use force? Coerce you? No, but then it's not theft in the legal sense. He slid a pamphlet across the counter. Here's information on small claims court and civil attorneys. I'm sorry, but there's nothing we can do from a criminal standpoint. I took the pamphlet and left. Sat in my car in the police station parking lot as the sun set. 5 days until rent was due, and I had barely enough to cover a quarter of it. No job, no savings. Facing potential criminal charges that could send me to prison. That night, I couldn't sleep. I researched everything online. Civil theft cases, joint account laws, embezzlement defenses. The more I read, the worse it looked. Proving civil theft against an authorized account holder was nearly impossible without proving she'd coerced me or lacked mental capacity. Linda would just claim I'd given permission, or that she'd believed as my mother she had the right to access the money for family needs. And if my company pressed criminal charges for embezzlement, prosecutors could argue I'd moved the stolen money and was hiding it. The fact that my mother had taken it could look like I'd given it to her to conceal it. Everything pointed back to me looking guilty. At 2 a.m, I sent one more text to Linda. Please, Mom, I'll do anything. Just give it back. I'm losing everything. The message showed as delivered. She'd read it. No response came. I fell asleep on my couch as the sun started rising, my phone clutched in my hand. When I woke 3 hours later, there was an email from HR. Subject line: suspension documentation. They'd formalized my administrative leave. No return date set. Investigation ongoing. My world kept shrinking. 5 days crawled by. I maxed out my credit cards buying groceries and gas. Borrowed the $1,000 from Sarah with my lie about delayed payment. Scraped together $1,400 total and brought it to my landlord, Mr. Thompson. He was a decent man in his 60s who'd rented to me for 3 years. I stood in his office above the garage, check in hand, knowing it wasn't enough. Almeda. Rent is $2,000. This is $700 short. I know. My voice came out small. I'm having some financial difficulties. Work payment got delayed. I can get you the rest in 2 weeks. That's what you said last month about being a few days late. His expression wasn't unkind, but it was firm. I can't keep making exceptions. I have bills too. Last month I'd been 3 days late with rent because I'd forgotten to transfer money between accounts. I'd never been late before that. Now it was happening again. Worse. If you can't pay full rent by the end of this week, I'll have to start eviction proceedings. I don't want to, but I have to protect my investment. I understand. I took my check back. I'll get you the money. But I had no idea how. That afternoon, the forensic accountant from my company called Diane Chen, a woman with a reputation for being thorough and fair. She wanted to meet for an interview about the allegations. We met at a coffee shop near my apartment. She had a laptop and a notepad, professional and direct. I need to ask you about your personal financial situation, Almeda. Have you experienced any financial stress recently? I wanted to tell her everything. About Brittany and the debts and my mother stealing my savings. But how would that sound? The accountant reviews my work files and I blame everything on family drama and stolen money. It would sound like exactly the kind of story a guilty person would make up. No, I said. Everything's fine. She made a note. Your bank records show a significant withdrawal 3 days ago. $42,000. My throat went dry. That's personal. It's relevant when you're accused of embezzling the same amount. Where did that money go? Family expense. Medical emergency. She looked at me. Can you document that? I can't. Because it would violate patient privacy. I was making it worse with every word. The interview lasted an hour. Every question felt like a trap. Every answer made me sound more guilty or more evasive. By the end, I could see in Diane's eyes that she didn't believe me. I'll complete my report in the next week, she said. The company will decide how to proceed based on my findings. I went home and sat in my apartment, staring at the walls. Everything was closing in. 2 days later, I was at the grocery store counting change to buy basics. Pasta, eggs, bread, things I could stretch for multiple meals. I was in the checkout line when I saw her. Brittany. She was across the store in the produce section, laughing into her phone. She looked healthy, relaxed, happy. Not like someone hiding from loan sharks. Not like someone in fear for her life. I stayed back, careful to maintain the 500-foot distance from the restraining order. Watched her shop. She bought expensive items. Organic everything. A designer purse hung from her shoulder, the kind that cost $2,000. She looked like someone without a care in the world. When she headed to checkout, I abandoned my cart and followed her to the parking lot, staying far back. Watched her load grocery bags into a new silver sedan. When she drove away, I followed in my car, keeping distance. She drove downtown to a commercial building I recognized. Nice area. Upscale. She parked and went inside. I waited 15 minutes, then walked to the building entrance. Checked the directory in the lobby. 3rd floor. Brittany Sullivan Beauty Studio. Opening soon. My hands started shaking. I pulled out my phone and searched. Found her business. Instagram page. Posted 3 days ago. Professional photos of a medical spa space. Equipment for cosmetic injections, facials, body treatments. The caption read, "Dreams coming true. Grand opening in 2 weeks. Grateful for the support that made this possible." I scrolled through the posts. More photos, more captions about following your passion and family support. Estimated startup costs for this type of business ran $40,000 to $50,000. There were never any loan sharks. Brittany had lied about the gambling debts. She'd lied about being in danger. She'd made up the whole story to manipulate me into giving her money to start this business. And when I refused, she and Linda had stolen it anyway. The restraining order was preemptive, to keep me from exposing them or demanding the money back. The fake embezzlement evidence was insurance, to destroy my credibility if I tried to fight. They'd planned everything. I sat in my car outside that building and felt something break inside me. My own mother and sister had conspired against me, had stolen my dreams to fund Brittany's business, had set me up to look like a criminal, had destroyed my life piece by piece. I wanted to scream, wanted to run into that building and confront Brittany, but the restraining order prevented it. Any contact would get me arrested. They'd planned that too. I drove home in a fog, found an eviction notice on my door. I had 10 days to pay full rent plus late fees or leave the apartment. $1,200 I didn't have. That night, I created an anonymous email account and sent a message to Brittany's business Instagram. Pretended to be a potential investor asking about funding sources. A desperate long shot. She replied within an hour. Publicly, on the Instagram comments where anyone could see. "Thanks so much for the interest. I'm fully funded through family support. So blessed to have a mom who believes in my vision." The next day, she posted a photo. Linda and Brittany holding champagne glasses, standing in the medical spa space. Caption: "When your mom believes in you enough to make miracles happen, opening day can't come soon enough." They weren't even hiding it. They were celebrating, posting it online, rubbing it in my face while I lost everything. I lay in bed that night staring at the ceiling, feeling completely defeated. No job, no money, facing eviction, potential criminal charges, and my family was toasting their betrayal on social media. My phone buzzed. Email from company HR. Subject: Investigation update. Urgent. I opened it with shaking hands. The investigation into financial irregularities in your managed accounts has reached a preliminary conclusion. Based on forensic analysis, the company has determined there is sufficient evidence to warrant further action. We are terminating your employment effective immediately and referring this matter to local law enforcement for criminal investigation. You have 72 hours to return all company property in your possession. Your final paycheck will be withheld, pending legal resolution. I read it 3 times. They were pressing charges. I was going to be arrested. Everything I'd built over 12 years of hard work was gone. My savings, my job, my reputation, my freedom might be next. and the people who'd destroyed my life were celebrating with champagne. 48 hours after the email, 2 detectives showed up at my apartment. A man and woman in plain clothes, badges on their belts. They were polite, but firm. I was under arrest for embezzlement. They read me my rights while I stood in my living room, the words washing over me like I was underwater. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you. The handcuffs were cold, heavy. The walk down to their unmarked car felt surreal. Mrs. Peterson from across the hall stood in her doorway watching. I'd watered her plants when she went to visit her daughter last month. Now she stared at me like I was a stranger. The county jail processing took hours. Fingerprints, photographs, questions. A small cell with concrete walls and a metal bench. The smell of disinfectant and despair. I met my court-appointed attorney the next morning, Jennifer Hayes. Early 40s, tired eyes, but sharp intelligence behind them. She'd clearly seen everything. We sat in a small conference room at the jail. She reviewed the charges, the evidence, the company's claims. "This doesn't look good," she said after 20 minutes. "The documentation is detailed, professional, but something feels off. It's all fake," I told her. My voice sounded hollow even to myself. Someone framed me. Who would do that? So I told her everything. The whole story from the beginning. Brittany's fake gambling debts. My refusal to pay. Linda draining my account. The restraining order. The business. The champagne photos. All of it. Jennifer took notes, her expression unreadable. When I finished, she sat back. "That's quite a conspiracy theory." "It's not a theory. It's what happened. Can you prove any of it?" I pulled out my phone, showed her the Instagram posts, the bank transactions, the timeline. She studied everything carefully. "This helps," she said finally. "But we need hard evidence. We need to prove those embezzlement documents were fabricated and trace them back to whoever made them." "How do we do that?" "I know someone who might help. Tech expert. Used to work FBI cybercrimes. Owes me a favor." The bail hearing was that afternoon. The prosecutor asked for $25,000. Jennifer argued I had no criminal history, strong community ties, and wasn't a flight risk. The judge seemed skeptical, but eventually agreed to release me on my own recognizance. No bail required, but strict conditions. I couldn't leave the county. Had to check in weekly. I walked out of jail 3 days after being arrested. Sarah picked me up. She'd figured out something was seriously wrong when I missed our regular coffee date and wouldn't return calls. I told her everything in the car. She pulled over on the side of the road and hugged me while I cried for the first time since this started. Over the next week, Jennifer worked fast. Her tech expert, Marcus, was a quiet man in his late 30s who worked out of a home office filled with computers. He analyzed the embezzlement documents with the kind of focus I recognized from my own work. 3 days later, he called Jennifer with results. I sat in her office while she put him on speaker. "The documents were created using specific software," Marcus said. "I traced the metadata. They were made on a computer registered to Linda Sullivan's home internet service. The email that sent them to the company came from an anonymous forwarding service, but the digital fingerprints are still there. She made these, or someone using her computer did." Jennifer looked at me. "This changes everything." She filed an emergency motion to dismiss the charges based on fabricated evidence, included Marcus's full forensic report, argued I was the victim of a family conspiracy, requested the police investigate Linda and Brittany for fraud, false reporting, and theft. The prosecutor took 2 days to respond. During those 2 days, I stayed with Sarah. Couldn't afford my apartment anymore. The eviction had gone through. Everything I owned was in a storage unit I'd rented with the last of my available credit. Then Linda hired an attorney. Robert Crawford, expensive suit, slick smile, the kind of lawyer who cost $500 an hour. He held a press conference. "My client, Linda Sullivan, is shocked and appalled by these baseless accusations. She accessed funds from a joint account in good faith to help her daughter through a legitimate medical emergency. Miss Almeda Sullivan gave verbal permission months ago. These recent allegations appear to be part of a pattern of unstable behavior, as evidenced by the restraining order filed against her by her own sister. We will vigorously defend against any claims and are considering a defamation suit. He also sent a formal response denying Linda created any documents. Suggested Almeda was mentally unstable, making false accusations, trying to blame family for her own criminal actions, pointed to the restraining order as proof of erratic behavior. Then it got worse. Linda gave an interview to a local news website. Reporter was a friend of hers, someone she'd known for years. The article painted Linda as a concerned mother trying to help troubled daughters, hinted at my problems with reality and concerning behaviors, suggested I needed psychiatric help rather than criminal prosecution. The article went online. My name was in it, my photo. People I'd gone to high school with saw it. Former co-workers, everyone. My phone filled with messages, some supportive, many judgmental, a few outright cruel. I stopped reading them. The prosecutor called Jennifer. They weren't dismissing charges yet, but were delaying the trial 60 days pending further investigation. They saw two possible scenarios: real embezzlement or elaborate family conspiracy. They needed more time to figure out which. I remained charged, remained unemployed, remained homeless, sleeping on Sarah's couch. My credit was destroyed. My reputation was destroyed. Job prospects with pending criminal charges were non-existent. Jennifer had one more strategy. She helped me file a civil lawsuit against Linda for theft and conversion of funds. It cost $200 to file, which Sarah lent me. I had to check a box indicating I was indigent, couldn't afford the normal filing fees. That hurt worse than I expected. The lawsuit demanded return of the $42,000 plus damages for emotional distress, lost wages, and legal fees. It was a long shot, but Jennifer said it might pressure Linda to settle. Linda's response came fast. Her attorney filed a motion to dismiss, argued Linda had every right to access the joint account, claimed I'd given permission, said I was harassing her with frivolous litigation. The judge set a hearing for 3 weeks away, same courthouse, same week as the restraining order review hearing. I'd get to face Brittany in court. It would be the first time I'd seen her since this started. The first time I could confront the lies. Jennifer coached me for hours. Stay calm. Stick to facts. Don't let emotions take over. Let the evidence speak. Don't give them ammunition. I agreed. But inside, rage was building. A cold, focused fury I'd never felt before. The night before the hearing, I couldn't sleep. Sarah made me tea and sat with me until 2 in the morning. They're going to lose, she said. The truth always comes out. I wanted to believe her, but so far, the truth hadn't mattered at all. The restraining order hearing was in a small courtroom that smelled like old wood and anxiety. Judge Patricia Morrison presided, a woman in her late 50s with gray hair and sharp eyes. I'd researched her. Former prosecutor. Tough, but fair. Brittany arrived with her attorney, an expensive-looking woman in a designer suit. Linda sat in the gallery behind them, perfectly dressed, playing the supportive mother. They didn't look at me. Jennifer and I sat at the other table. My hands were shaking. I clasped them together under the table. Judge Morrison called the hearing to order. Brittany's attorney went first, calling Brittany to the stand. My sister looked perfect. Hair styled, makeup subtle, clothing professional. She took the oath and sat down, hands folded in her lap. Her attorney walked her through her claims, the threatening texts, the visit to her apartment where I'd screamed at her, the verbal threats of physical harm if she didn't stop asking for money. Brittany's voice shook at the right moments. Tears appeared on cue. She was convincing. I'll give her that. I feared for my safety, she said. My own sister was threatening me. I didn't know what else to do except seek protection from the court. Her attorney submitted evidence. Screenshots of text messages from a phone number, threatening messages about making her pay, about not getting away with this. Then Jennifer stood for cross-examination. Miss Sullivan, can you read that phone number from the text messages aloud? Brittany recited it confidently. Jennifer pulled out a document. And what is your sister Almeida's phone number? Brittany gave it. Different number. So these threatening texts came from a different phone number than your sister's actual phone? Brittany hesitated. She might have gotten a different phone. Jennifer pulled out my phone records. These are Miss Almeida Sullivan's phone records for the past 6 months. Only one number. The one I just stated. She's never had the number from those text messages. Can you explain that? I don't know. Maybe she used someone else's phone. Jennifer moved on. You testified that Miss Sullivan came to your apartment and threatened you. What date was that? Brittany gave a date. 3 weeks ago. Jennifer submitted another document. This is security badge data from Westfield Investment Partners. It shows Miss Sullivan entering the building at 7:42 a.m. that day and exiting at 6:15 p.m. She was at work all day. How did she visit your apartment during work hours? Brittany's face flushed. Maybe it was a different day. I might have gotten confused about the date. Judge Morrison leaned forward. Miss Sullivan, you filed this restraining order based on specific allegations. Either these events happened or they didn't. They happened. Brittany's voice rose. Maybe the exact dates are wrong, but she threatened me. Jennifer pulled out her final piece. Let's talk about why this dispute started. You asked Miss Sullivan for $45,000, correct? To pay off debts. Yes. What kind of debts? Personnel debts. Gambling debts? According to your initial story. Loan sharks threatening your life. Objection. Brittany's attorney stood. Relevance. Your Honor, Jennifer said. Motive is absolutely relevant. The respondent claims these threats were about money. I'm establishing the context. Overruled. The judge nodded. Continue. Jennifer turned back to Brittany. Did you have gambling debts? I had debts, Brittany repeated. To loan sharks? To people I owed money. Were you in danger? I felt I was. But you opened a business 2 weeks ago. Brittany Sullivan Beauty Studio, a medical spa. Startup costs for that type of business run $40,000 to $50,000. Where did that money come from? Brittany glanced at her attorney, then at Linda. Family helped me. Which family member? My mother gave me money from her personal savings. From a joint account she shared with your sister. An account containing $42,000 that disappeared the same night your mother withdrew it. Money your sister had saved for 12 years. Objection. Brittany's attorney was on her feet. This is beyond the scope. Your Honor, Jennifer said calmly. The respondent filed a restraining order, claiming her sister threatened her over money. I'm showing that the respondent and her mother took that money through questionable means, making the sister appear unstable, so she couldn't fight back. This goes to credibility and motive. Judge Morrison studied Jennifer for a long moment. I'll allow it, but get to your point quickly. Jennifer faced Brittany again. You never had gambling debts, did you? You wanted money to start a business. When your sister refused, you and your mother conspired to take it anyway. You filed a false restraining order to discredit her. Is that the truth? No, that's not. Brittany's voice cracked. My mother helped me with money from a joint account she had every right to access. My sister was threatening me because she's angry about it. So your mother did take money from the account? She didn't take it. She accessed it. It's her account too. The slip hung in the air. Brittany's attorney looked pained. Jennifer pressed. From where? From a joint account she shared with your sister? The $42,000? I don't know the exact amount. But yes, family helped. That doesn't make my sister's threats okay. Judge Morrison held up a hand. Let's take a 15-minute recess. I need to review these documents. We stood. Brittany rushed out of the courtroom with her attorney. Linda followed, not looking at me. Jennifer touched my arm. That went better than expected. She contradicted herself multiple times. But will it be enough? We'll see. When court resumed, Judge Morrison delivered her ruling. There's clearly more going on here than a simple restraining order case. Miss Brittany Sullivan, your credibility has been significantly undermined. The phone numbers don't match. The dates don't align. Your story has changed. However, she continued, in restraining order cases, I err on the side of caution. I'm maintaining the order temporarily for another 30 days while a full investigation into all allegations takes place. Miss Almeda Sullivan, you must continue to maintain distance. We'll reconvene in 30 days to review. Brittany technically won. The restraining order stayed in place, but her lies were exposed on record. Outside the courthouse, Linda was waiting. She approached me directly in the parking lot. There was no restraining order against Linda, so she could speak to me freely. You need to stop this, she said. Her voice was cold, controlled. Drop the civil suit. Drop the accusations. Walk away. You stole from me. I accessed money I had every right to access. As a co-owner of that account, you're making yourself look insane. You planned this with Brittany. You fabricated evidence. You're destroying my life. Linda stepped closer. Her expression was something I'd never seen before. Pure calculation. You're destroying yourself. Look at you. No job, no home, facing criminal charges. Nobody believes you. You look crazy. The more you fight, the worse you look. I'll never stop fighting. Yes, you will. Her smile was cold. You'll see. She walked away. 2 days later, I received legal documents by certified mail. Linda had filed an emergency petition for temporary guardianship over me. The filing claimed I was mentally incompetent and a danger to myself. Cited the embezzlement charges, the false accusations against family, losing my job and apartment, delusional conspiracy theories. If the court granted it, Linda would have legal control over my finances, medical decisions, legal matters. She could commit me for psychiatric evaluation, could settle my civil suit against her, could drop my criminal defense. Total control over my life. Jennifer called me as soon as she found out. This is the nuclear option. She's desperate, but it's also dangerous. Guardianship cases are serious. Can she actually win? The court will order a psychiatric evaluation. If the psychiatrist finds you're unstable or incompetent, she could. You need to pass that evaluation, Almeida, no matter what. The evaluation was scheduled for 3 days later. Dr. Raymond Foster, a forensic psychiatrist in his late 60s, with credentials that filled 2 pages. He'd evaluated hundreds of people for courts. The session was in his office downtown. 3 hours of questions about my childhood, my relationship with my family, my financial situation, my emotional state, whether I'd ever thought about hurting myself or others, whether I heard voices, saw things that weren't there, felt people were conspiring against me. That last one was a trap, because people were conspiring against me. But if I said that too emphatically, I'd sound paranoid. I walked the finest line of my life. Explained the situation calmly, rationally, acknowledged the stress I was under but maintained I was coping, showed appropriate emotion but not too much. Spoke clearly about the evidence and facts without sounding obsessive. Dr. Foster took pages of notes. His expression gave nothing away. The report would take 5 days. 5 days of not knowing if I'd lose what little freedom I had left. I stayed with Sarah, barely eating, barely sleeping. She forced me to shower and eat and tried to keep me distracted, but I couldn't focus on anything. On the 4th day, Jennifer called. She'd received the report early. He found you competent, she said. I could hear the relief in her voice. Acute stress and adjustment disorder, which is reasonable given circumstances. But no psychosis, no incompetence, no danger to yourself or others. He actually noted that your account of events is internally consistent and supported by documented evidence. It helps your case. I sat down hard on Sarah's couch. Thank you. But the guardianship hearing is still scheduled. Linda's attorney will argue the report isn't sufficient, that you're manipulative and fooled the doctor. We're not done yet. The hearing was set for 2 days later. Jennifer prepared me again. Stay calm, look stable, don't react to Linda's provocations. The night before the hearing, I was lying in Sarah's guest room staring at the ceiling when my phone buzzed with an email. Sender: anonymous287@protonmail.com. Subject: you need to see this. I almost deleted it. Spam. Phishing. But something made me open it. No message in the body. Just an audio file attached. Duration: 6 minutes, 43 seconds. I downloaded it and hit play. Linda's voice came through clearly. So she completely believed the gambling story? Brittany laughing. Totally. She actually looked worried that loan sharks would hurt me. Linda again. And she refused to give you the money? Of course she did. You know Almeda. Always so moral and righteous. Always thinks she's better than everyone. Well, she's about to learn she's not. I'll take the money tonight from the joint account. You file the restraining order tomorrow morning like we planned. By the time she realizes what happened, she'll be powerless to stop it. The recording continued. Them discussing the fake embezzlement documents Linda's friend from work would help create. How the timing would make Almeda look guilty. How the restraining order would prevent her from fighting back. They laughed about it. Actually laughed. My hands shook holding the phone. This was it. Proof. Complete, undeniable proof of their conspiracy. But who sent it? A second email arrived. Same sender. Just one line. I've been watching them destroy you. I couldn't stay silent anymore. We need to talk. I know you hate me, but I'm still your father, David. I stared at that name for a full minute. David Sullivan. My father. Who'd left when I was 12 years old and Brittany was 8. Who disappeared from our lives after a bitter divorce that Linda never let us forget. Who I'd grown up believing didn't love us, didn't want us, couldn't be bothered to stay in touch. I hadn't spoken to him in 20 years. His phone number was at the bottom of the email. I looked at it for an hour, phone in my hand. Sarah had gone to bed. The apartment was quiet except for my breathing. Finally, I called. He answered on the first ring. Almeda. His voice broke on my name. I hadn't realized how much I'd forgotten what he sounded like. Deeper than I remembered. Older. How did you get this recording? I hired a private investigator 6 months ago. He'd been watching Linda and Brittany. I knew they were planning something. Why? Because I've kept tabs on you girls all these years. I saw Brittany's social media activity, her money problems. Saw Linda making unusual financial moves. I had a bad feeling. You've been watching me? Not like that. Just making sure you were okay. I never stopped caring about you, Almeda. Never. You left. My voice was harder than I intended. You abandoned us. Is that what your mother told you? Yes. That's not what happened. There was pain in his voice. Linda and I had problems. The marriage was ending. But I never wanted to leave you girls. I fought for custody. I fought for visitation. She made it a war. Told the courts I was unstable, dangerous. Turned you against me. The judge gave her full custody and restricted my access. I tried, Almeda. I sent letters. Came to your school events and sat in the back where you wouldn't see me. Called when she'd let me through, which was almost never. Eventually, I realized my presence was just making things harder for you. So I stayed away. But I watched. I always watched. I didn't know what to say. My entire childhood, my whole understanding of my family, was built on Linda's narrative. My father didn't want us. My father chose to leave. My father didn't care. The recording, I finally said. How did you get it? The investigator I hired placed legal audio surveillance in a public space where they met regularly. A coffee shop. They met there 2 days before your mother took your money. Everything they said was recorded. It's legal. It's admissible. And it proves everything. Why are you helping me now? Because I can't watch them destroy you anymore. His voice broke again. You're my daughter. I should have fought harder 20 years ago. I'm not making that mistake again. Silence stretched between us. I need to meet you, he said. I have more than just the recording. I have financial documents, timeline evidence, everything my investigator gathered. Enough to bury Linda and Brittany's case completely. Where are you? 2 hours away. I can come to you. Or you can come here. Whichever you're comfortable with. I thought of Linda's face in the parking lot. Her cold certainty that she'd won. Her belief that I had nothing left. Let's meet, I said. Tomorrow morning. I'll text you an address. We met at a diner on the edge of town. Neutral territory. I got there early, sat in a booth by the window. When he walked in, I recognized him immediately, even though 20 years had passed. Taller than I remembered. Gray in his hair now, lines around his eyes. But the same face I'd seen in old photos before Linda had destroyed them all. He slid into the booth across from me. We stared at each other. You look so much like your grandmother, he said finally. She would have been proud of the woman you became. I didn't know what to say to that. So I said, show me what you have. He pulled out a folder. Inside were printed documents, photographs, timelines. His investigator had been thorough. Brittany's business planning started 8 months ago. Here's her LLC filing. Here's the commercial lease she signed. Here are loan applications she submitted and was denied for because of her credit. She needed cash, a lot of it. He showed me more. Linda taking out a home equity line of credit 3 months ago, $50,000. But she'd only used part of it. They needed more money to fully fund Brittany's spa. They needed your savings to complete the funding, he explained. This was premeditated theft, not a spur-of-the-moment decision. There were photos, too. Linda and Brittany meeting at the coffee shop multiple times over several months. The investigator had documented everything. This is enough, I said quietly. This proves everything. There's more. He pulled out another document. I've hired you an attorney, best civil litigator in the state. She's reviewing the case now and ready to take it on contingency. You won't pay unless you win. Why are you doing this? Because you're my daughter. Because Linda has poisoned everything she's touched for 30 years and I'm done letting her. Because you deserve justice. I felt something crack inside me. The anger, the hurt, the exhaustion of the past month. It all came pouring out. I cried in that diner booth while my father, this stranger I'd spent 2 decades hating, reached across the table and held my hand. I'm sorry I wasn't there, he said. I'm sorry I let her keep me away. I'm sorry for everything, but I'm here now, and we're going to make this right. Over the next 2 hours, he told me everything. His life after the divorce. How he'd remarried a kind woman named Susan. How he had a stepdaughter, Emily, who was 16 now. How he'd built an accounting firm from nothing. How he'd never stopped loving Brittany and me, even though we'd been taught to hate him. My whole life was built on Linda's lies. The loving, sacrificing mother who held our family together after our father abandoned us. It had all been manipulation, but I had no time to process that. We had a guardianship hearing in 2 days, and a restraining order review in a week. Jennifer met with us that afternoon. When she heard the recording and saw David's evidence, her eyes lit up. This changes everything, she said. We can destroy Linda's guardianship petition. We can get the restraining order dismissed. And we can use this in the criminal case to get those charges dropped completely. What about the civil suit? David asked. That becomes much stronger. We can prove conspiracy, fraud, intentional infliction of emotional distress. The damages could be significant. The guardianship hearing came first. Linda's attorney presented their case about my mental instability. I sat quietly while they talked about me like I wasn't there. Then Jennifer stood. Your Honor, I'd like to present new evidence that completely contradicts the petitioner's claims. She played the recording. Linda's voice filled the courtroom, planning the theft, laughing about the restraining order, discussing how to make me look crazy. Linda's face went white. Her attorney tried to object, but the judge silenced him. When the recording ended, Jennifer called David to testify. He explained about the investigation, the timeline, the premeditation. He was calm, credible, with documents to back up every word. The judge's expression throughout was one of growing disgust. "Petition denied," she said when David finished. "Furthermore, I'm referring this matter to the district attorney for investigation into potential criminal charges against Linda Sullivan and Brittany Sullivan for fraud, false reporting, and conspiracy. This is one of the most egregious abuses of the guardianship system I've seen in 20 years on the bench." Linda's attorney tried to speak, but the judge cut him off. "We're done here." Outside the courthouse, Linda tried to approach me. David stepped between us. "Stay away from my daughter," he said quietly. "If you come near her again, I'll file for a restraining order against you. And unlike yours, mine will be based on truth." Linda stared at him with pure hatred. "This isn't over." "Yes, it is. You just haven't realized it yet." She left with her attorney, both of them looking shaken. A week later, the restraining order hearing happened. With the recording and David's evidence, Brittany's attorney didn't even argue hard. The judge dissolved the order immediately and warned Brittany about the consequences of false reporting. The prosecutor called Jennifer 2 days after that. They were dropping the embezzlement charges. The forensic evidence proved the documents were fabricated. They were investigating Linda and Brittany instead. My company sent a formal letter of apology. They couldn't rehire me immediately because of policies, but they'd clear my record and provide a positive reference. Everything was falling into place, but I still didn't have my money back. Linda's attorney called Jennifer with a settlement offer. $30,000 of the $42,000. Linda claimed she'd already spent $12,000 on Brittany's business. She wanted me to sign a release, absolving her of all liability. "It's lowball," Jennifer said. "But trial could take years and cost money. Even with your father's help, there's a risk Linda could declare bankruptcy and you'd get nothing." I thought about it for 3 days. Thought about taking the money and moving on. Thought about closure. Then I thought about Linda's face in that parking lot, her certainty that I'd break, her belief that she'd won. "No," I told Jennifer. "We take this to trial. I want full restitution plus damages for everything she put me through. The lost job, the homelessness, the criminal charges, all of it. It could take 6 months or more. I don't care. She needs to face consequences, real ones." Jennifer smiled. "Then let's fight." David was standing in his living room when I called to tell him my decision. I heard pride in his voice when he said, "That's my girl." Over the next months, I started putting my life back together. Stayed with Sarah while I saved money from a new job. David helped me get at his accounting firm. It wasn't my old career, but it was a start. Slowly rebuilt my credit. Slowly stopped jumping every time the phone rang. I also started getting to know my father. Dinners with him and Susan. Meeting Emily, who was smart and funny and didn't judge me for the mess my life had been. Hearing stories about my grandmother, who I'd been named after. Learning what family was supposed to feel like. The trial date was set for 6 months after the guardianship hearing. David hired the attorney he'd promised, Rachel Winters, a woman in her 50s with a reputation for destroying people in civil court. She was worth every penny. The civil trial lasted 3 days. Rachel presented the evidence methodically, building the case piece by piece. The joint account history showing Linda had never accessed it before that night. The recording of Linda and Brittany planning everything. The fake embezzlement documents traced to Linda's computer. The restraining order proven false. The business Brittany opened with my stolen money. The timeline showing premeditation. David's investigator testimony. Dr. Foster's psychiatric report confirming I was completely sane despite what they'd put me through. Linda's attorney tried. He argued Linda had believed she had the right to the money, that there was no conspiracy, just a misunderstanding between family members, that I was exaggerating the damages. But Rachel destroyed every argument. She put me on the stand and walked me through everything. The 12 years of work, the savings discipline, the dreams of home ownership, the betrayal by my mother and sister, the arrest, the jail time, losing my job, losing my apartment, the terror of facing prison for a crime I didn't commit, the public humiliation. I kept my composure until Rachel asked, "What did it feel like when you realized your own mother had planned this?" That's when I broke. Not dramatically, just quiet tears I couldn't stop. The jury watched. Half of them were crying too. Brittany was called to testify. She tried to maintain the Victim Act, but Rachel tore her apart on cross-examination. By the end, Brittany admitted the gambling debts were fabricated, admitted the restraining order exaggerated threats, admitted she'd used my money for her business. Linda testified last. She was cold on the stand, defensive, refused to show remorse, kept insisting she'd had the right to access that money, that I was being vindictive. Rachel let her talk, let her show the jury exactly who she was. Closing arguments were brutal. Rachel painted Linda and Brittany as calculating conspirators who'd destroyed their own daughter and sister for money, who'd fabricated evidence and abused the legal system, who'd shown no remorse even when caught. The jury deliberated for 4 hours. They found Linda liable for conversion of funds, fraud, conspiracy to defraud, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. They awarded me $68,000. The original $42,000 plus $26,000 in damages for lost wages, emotional distress, and legal fees. Linda's face when the verdict was read stayed with me. Not sadness, not regret, just cold fury that she'd lost. The judge ordered payment within 30 days or face contempt charges. Linda tried to appeal but lost. She had to sell her house to pay the judgment. The house I'd grown up in, where she'd raised us, where she'd built her life around being the martyred single mother. Brittany's business failed within 6 months. Without Linda's financial support, and with the reputation damage from the trial, clients dried up. She closed the spa and moved across the country. I heard she was working retail somewhere. We haven't spoken since the trial. Linda and Brittany both faced state charges for fraud and filing false reports. They both took plea deals, probation, community service, and permanent records. Not enough punishment in my view, but something. I used the judgment money for a down payment on a small house. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, a tiny backyard. Nothing fancy. But it was mine. I painted the walls myself. David and Susan helped me move in. Sarah brought plants. Emily helped me pick out furniture. I got my job back at Westfield Investment after 6 months. Harold personally called to offer it back, with a raise and a formal apology from the company. They'd fired the person who'd helped Linda create the fake documents. It turned out Linda had gone to high school with someone in the IT department who owed her a favor. That person lost their job and faced charges too. My credit recovered slowly. My reputation recovered slower. But they both recovered. The hardest part was forgiving myself for not seeing it sooner. For all the years I'd believed Linda's lies about David. For enabling Brittany's behavior for so long. For not removing Linda from that joint account years ago. Jennifer told me something that helped. Hindsight makes everything clear, but you were living in the middle of it. You couldn't have known. David and I have dinner every Sunday now. Sometimes at his house, sometimes at mine. We're rebuilding what Linda destroyed. It's not the relationship we would have had if she hadn't interfered. Too many years were lost. But it's something. It's real. Susan treats me like a daughter. Emily calls me her sister. I have a family again. A real one. I learned something through all of this. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes the people who love you most are the ones who let you go, waiting patiently for you to find your way back. Sometimes, the strongest thing you can do is refuse to be a victim, even when everyone expects you to fall. My mother took my money. She took my sense of safety. She tried to take my freedom and my sanity, but she couldn't take my spirit. That was mine alone, and I chose to fight. Real family doesn't steal your dreams. They help you build them. They stand beside you when everything falls apart. They hold your hand in diner booths when you cry. They testify for you in court. They help you paint walls in your first house. I'm 32 years old and starting over. I have a house with mortgage payments I make on time every month. A job I'm good at. Friends who stayed when things got hard. A father I'm learning to know. A future that's mine to build. The scars are still there. I check my bank account obsessively now. I struggle to trust people. I have nightmares sometimes about those 3 days in jail. But I'm healing. And I'm free. If you've stayed with me through this whole story, thank you. I know it was long and painful, but I wanted you to understand how systematic the betrayal was, how carefully they planned it, and how hard I had to fight to survive it. If you've ever been betrayed by family, I want you to know you're not alone. If you've ever felt trapped by people who were supposed to love you, I understand. And if you're fighting to reclaim your life from people who tried to destroy it, keep fighting. It's worth it. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you ever had to cut ties with family members who betrayed you? How did you rebuild your life afterward? Leave your story in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button. Subscribe to hear more stories of people who refuse to stay down. Share this with someone who needs to know they're not alone in their struggle. Thank you for listening. Thank you for caring. I hope you never have to face what I faced. But if you do, I hope my story gives you the strength to fight back. Remember that you're stronger than you think. Your spirit is yours alone. Nobody can take it unless you let them. And sometimes the family you choose is worth more than the family you're born into. Take care of yourselves. Protect your peace. And never stop fighting for the life you deserve.